There we go. Okay, this is Integrating Technology by Caitlin McCarthy. What evidence did you see and hear by watching Mr. Pronovost differentiating instruction through interactive games that supports what you've been learning thus far regarding setting and communicating learning objectives using the gradual release model, giving feedback, and assessment? Regarding setting and communicating learning objectives, he started his lesson simply by asking his students if they could find the difference between addition and subtraction by concluding what the key words were. Once he saw that they knew the difference, he incorporated the technology and gave them games. Certain games needed to be completed and levels needed to be achieved before they could move on to something more advanced, like games on the iPod Touch. Using the gradual release model, he begins his lessons by talking about math word problems and how to identify the use of addition or subtraction. And this is the I do it part. Then he goes around his classroom and talks to his students in small groups and asks how they came up with their answer. And that's the we do it portion. Then the use of the technology comes in, and he lets his students play the math games that make the learning more fun, in his opinion, and that's the you do it. Lastly, he lets his students use the technology at their own pace, and once they complete levels, they can use different tools. This is when they do it alone. When he gives feedback, he walks around the classroom to listen to the students and their collaborative instructions and working in smaller groups. He gives verbal feedback to his students, as well as the technology gives feedback when the students move on to another level. Assessment. The assessment is the online games that the students are playing. They're given immediate feedback using the Planet Turtle resource, and they are getting assessment from when he goes around and he's seeing the assessment by using the games. This is just a picture of the gradual release model. It shows the teacher's responsibility and the student's responsibility and everything else. How does he specifically structure his lesson to incorporate technology? How does using technology promote differentiation? When he incorporates technology, he starts without it first. The students use only the whiteboards or their hands to count in the math lesson. Once he felt that they were getting the hang of it, he moved them onto the computers. Planet Turtle is an online resource with math games. Students need to play 3 games and score at least an 80% on all 3 to move on to the Dreambox and then onto the iPod Touches. And this is a rule that he makes in his classroom. As far as promoting differentiation, Planet Turtle is a helpful technology tool that allows students to work on a math skill until they have at least 80% correct, specifically for his classroom. And once they score what they need to score, they can move on to Dreambox and then the iPod Touch. This helps differentiation because Mr. Pronovost is able to actively help the students that could not get past Planet Turtle on their own. So he is able to focus more on their needs and where they're having their own struggles. But it also allows for students who pass Planet Turtle easily. They can go on to harder activities and not wait for each student to catch up with them. What evidence is there of varying levels of cognition? Identify the levels of depth of knowledge you observed students reaching during the various stages of the lesson. First and foremost, the varying levels of cognition is evident in the different levels students have to pass to go on to the next level. So, for example, Planet Turtle is one of the first lessons that students have to take and complete to move on to a higher level. And the highest level in this case is to play the academic games on the iPod. The levels of depth of knowledge are recall and reproduction, skills and concepts, short-term strategic thinking, and lastly, extended thinking. Recall and reproduction involves basic tasks that require students to recall their prior knowledge. So while the students sitting in the circle Mr. Pronovost tells them a math problem and then asks them to reflect on the words he used to decide if the problem requires addition or subtraction. This is an example of recall and reproduction. The skills and concepts, it mostly is a use of mental processing. This goes one step beyond recall and reproduction. The students do this when they begin to work on the computer program Planet Turtle, where they apply what they've learned in recall and reproduction. So they need to first do recall and reproduction in order to do skills and concepts. Short-term strategic thinking is just short-term use of higher process thinking. This is when the students pass the Planet Turtle level and move on to Dreambox, the more challenging program. Extended thinking is when students are engaged in conducting investigations to solve real-world problems with unpredictable outcomes. Although I did not see this in the video, I do know that it can be done. How do you believe this type of learning environment makes students feel about their capabilities with math, and why? I personally think this type of learning environment makes students feel more confident in their capabilities with math. I wish I had this when I was in 3rd or 4th or 5th or, even going up to high school, because math was never my strong suit, and I always felt like the teacher had to backtrack specifically for me. So with this program, the teacher can give their one-on-one attention to the students that are struggling, while the students who are not can go on to more advanced games where they can feel challenged instead of feeling like they're being held back. And that is my resources. Thank you very much.